8. Their weapons are most what solid earthly bodies, nothing of iron, but much of stone, like the yellow soft flint spa, shapes like a barbed arrowhead, and flung like a dart, with great force. These arms, cut by air and tools of something, if it seems beyond humane, have something of the nature of thunderbolt futility, and morally wounding the vital parts without breaking the skin, of which wounds I have observed in beasts and felt them with my own hands. They are not as infallible Benjamites, hitting at a hair's breadth, nor are they wholly unvanquishable, at least in appearance. The men of the second sight do not discover strange things when asked, but at fits and raptures, if inspired with some genius of the instant, which more did lurk in or about them. Thus I have frequently spoke to one of them, who is his transport told he cut the body of one of those people in two with his iron weapon, and so escaped his unset. Yet he saw nothing left behind of that disappearing divided. At other times he out-wrestled some of them. His neighbors often perceived this man to disappear at a certain place, and about 1 hour after to become invisible, and discover himself near a bowshot of the first place. It was in that place where he became invisible, said he, that the subterraneans did encounter and combat with him. Those who are unseen or unsanctified, called Fae, are said to be pierced or wounded in those people's weapons, which makes them do somewhat very unlike their former practice, causing a sudden alteration, yet the cause thereof unperceivable at present, nor have they power, either they cannot make use of their natural powers, or are asked not the heavenly aid, to escape the blow impendent. A man of the second sight perceived a person standing by him, sound to others' view, wholly gored in blood, and he, amazed like, bid him instantly to flee. The whole man laughed at this airt and warning, since there was no appearance of danger. He had scarce contracted his lips from laughter when unexpectedly his enemy leapt in at his side and stabbed him with their weapons. They also pierce cows or other animals, usually said to be elfsrat, whose purest substance, if they die, these subterraneans take to live on, viz., the aerial or ethereal parts, the most superstitious matter or prolonging of life, such as antiquae, moderately taken, is among liquors having the terrestrial behind. The cure of such hurts is only for a man to find out the hole in his finger, as is the spirits flowing from man's warm hand or antidote sufficient against their polisoned darts. 9. As birds and beasts whose bodies are much used to the change of the sky and open to the air, foresee storms, so those invisible people are more sagacious to understand by the books of natures things to come than we, who are pestered with the grosser dregs of all elementary mixtures, and have our purer spirits choked by them. The deer sends out a man in powder, though a late invention, at the great distance, a hungry hunter, bread, and the raven a carrion. Their brands being long classified as high and subtle air, will observe a very small change in a thrice. Thus a man of the second sight, perceiving the operations of these forecastings invisible people among us, indulged thorough a stupendous providence to give warnings of some remarkable events, either in the air, earth, or waters. And he saw a winding shroud creeping in the walking heathful person's legs till it come to the knees, and afterwards it came up to the middle, then to the shoulders, and at last over the head, which was visible to no other person. And by observing the spaces of time betwixt these several stages, he easily guessed how long the man was to live who wore the shroud, for when it approached his head, he told that such a person was ripe for the grave. 10. There are many places called Faerie-Hills, which the mountain people think impious and dangerous to peel or discover by taking earth or wood from them. superstitiously believing the souls of their predecessors to dwell there. And for that end, a moat or mound was dedicated beside every churchyard to receive the souls till their adjacent bodies arise, and so become as a Faerie-Hill, the uswing bodies of the air when called abroad. They also affirm those creatures that move invisibly in a house and haft great stones, but do not much hurt, because counterwrought by some more courteous and charitable spirits that are everywhere ready to defend men. Dan 10:13. To be the souls that have not attained their rest, throughout the vehement desire of revealing a mother or notable injury done or received, or a treasure that was forgot in their lifetime on earth, which, when disclosed to a conjurer alone, the ghost quite removes. In the next country to that of my former residence, about the year 1676, when there was some scarcity of grain, a marvelous lapse in the vision strongly struck the imagination of two women in one night, living at a good distance from one another, about the treasure hid in a hill, called Sith Burach and Faerie-Hill. The appearance of the treasure was first represented to the fancy, and then an audible voice came and placed where it was their waking senses. Whereupon both arose, and meeting accidentally at the place, discovered their design, and jointly digging found a vessel as large as a Scottish peck, full of small pieces of good money, of ancient coin, which having betwixt them, they fold into dishfuls, and dishfuls of meal into the country people. Very many of undoubted credit saw and of the coin this day. But whether it was good or bad angel, one of the subterranean people, or the restless soul of him who hid it, that discovered it, and to what end it was done, I leave to the examination of others. 11. These subterraneans have controversies, doubts, disputes, feuds, and siding of parties, there being some ignorance in all creatures, and the vastest created intelligences not compassing all things. As to vice and sin, whatever their own laws be, sure according to ours, and equally natural, civil, and revealed, they transgress and commit acts of injustice and sin, by what is said above. As to their stealing of nurses to their children, and of other sort of plagiarism, in catching our children away, may seem to err some estate in those invisible dominions, which never return. For the inconvenience of their succubi, who tryst with men, it is abominable. For the swearing and intemperance, they are not observed, so subject to the irregularities as envy, spite, hypocrisy, lying, and dissimulation. 12. As our religion obliges us not to make a peremptory or curious search into these obstrucencies, so that the histories of the ages give as many plain examples of extraordinary occurrences as make the modest inquiry not contemptible. How much is written of pygmies, fairies, nymphs, sirens, apparitions, which, though not the 10th part true, yet could not spring of nothing. Even English authors relate of Berry Island and Glamorganshire, that laying your ear to the cliff on the rocks and blowing bellows, striking of hammers and clashing of armors, flying of iron, will be heard distinctly ever since Merlin enchanted those subterranean wights through a forward mangle forging of arms to Aurelius Ambrosius and his Britons, till he returned, which Merlin being killed in battle, and not coming to loose the knot, these active Vulcans are there tied to their perpetual labor. But to dip no deeper into this well, I must next give some account how the seer, my informer, comes to have this secret way of correspondence beyond other mortals. There be odd similarities in investing a man with privileges of the whole mystery of this second sight. He must run a tether of hair, which abound of corpse in the bier, in a helix about his middle from end to end, then bow his head downwards, as did Elijah in 1 Kings 18:42, and look back through his legs until he fly a funeral advance till the people's cross two marches, or look thus back through a hole that was a knot in the fur. But if the wind change points while the hair tether is tied about him, he is in peril of his life. The usual method for a curious person to get transient sight of his otherwise indivisible crew of subterraneans, if impotently or other rashly fought, is to put his left foot under the wizard's right foot, and the seer's hand and put in the inquirer's head, who is to look over the wizard's right shoulder, be he's an ill appearance, as if his by ceremony any implicit surrender were made of all betwixt the wizard's foot and his hand, or the person can be admitted to bravado of the art. Then he will see a magnitude of wights, like furious hardy men, flocking to him hastily from all quarters, as thick as atoms in the air, which are no non-entities or phantasms, creatures proceeding from one affrighted apparition, confused or crazed sense, but realities appearing to a stable man in his awakening sense, and enduring the rational trial of their being. These throughout fear-stricken beliefs and speechless. The wizard, defending the lawfulness of his skill, forbids such horror, and comforts his novice by telling of Zacharias as being struck speechless at fleeing apparitions. Luke 1:20. Then he further maintains his art by vouching Elijah to have had the same, and disclosed it thus unto the servant in 2 Kings 6:17, when he blinded the Syrians, and Peter in Acts 5:9, foreseeing the death of Sapphira by perceiving as it were her winding sheet around her beforehand, and Paul in the 2 Corinth 12:4, who got such a vision and sight as should not nor be told. Elijah also in his chamber saw Gehazi, his servant, at a great distance taking a reward from Naaman. 2 Kings 5:26. Hence were the prophets frequently called seers, or men of a second or more exalted sight than others. He acts for his person also, Matthew 4:8, where the devil undertakes to give even Jesus the sight of all nations, and the finest things in the world at one glance, though in their natural situations and stations are vast distance from each other. And 'tis said expressly he did not sigh them, not on a map it seems, nor in a fantastic magical juggling of the sight, which he could not impose upon so discovering the person. It would appear, then, to have been a sight of real solid substances and things of worth, which he intended as a bait for his purpose. Once it might seem, comparing the relation to Matthew's 4:8 with the former, that the extraordinary or second sight can be given by the ministry of as bad as well as good spirits of those that will embrace it. An instance of Basom and the parenthesis make it nothing the less probable. Thus also the seer trains his scholar by telling of the graduations of nature, ordered by a wife of Providence, that as the sight of bats and owls transcend that of shrews and moles, so that vision faculties of men are clearer than those of owls, and eagles and lynxes and cats are brighter than that of men's. And again, that men of the second sight, being designed to give warnings against secret engines, surpass the ordinary vision of other men, which in a native habits in some descended from their ancestors, and acquired as an artificial improvement of their natural sight in others. Resembling in their own kind the usual artificial helps the optic glasses, as perspectives, telescopes, and microscopes, without the astucious aids those men who treated to do perceive things that, for their smallness or subtlety and secrecy, are invisible to others, though daily conversant with them. They having such a beam continually about them as that of the sun, which when it shines clearly only lets eyes see the atoms in the air that without those rays they could not discern, for some have the second sight transmitted from the father to the son throughout the whole family, without their own consent, and others teaching proceeding only from a bounty of providence, it seems, or by a compact, or by complexional quality of the first acquirer. As it may seem alike strange, yet nothing vicious, and such as Master Graperake, the Irish Stroker, Seventh Sons, and the others that cure the king's evil and chase away defeats and pains, with only stroking of the afflicted part, which, if it be not of the reliquies of mechanical apparitions or some secret virtue in the womb of the parent which increases until seventh sons are born, and decreases by the famed degrees afterwards, proceeds only from the scent of balefrom the healthful constitutions. Virtue going out from them is spirituous effluxes unto the patient, and their vigorous healthy spirits affecting the sick, as usually as unhealthy sins of these sick infect the whole unfound.